Welcome. What is up? I have returned. I am back from the ether, and today I'm going to be talking to you about attention and how to train and build focus. This is something which is increasingly important in today's world, but is also increasingly rare as we are more constantly distracted by things like our phones, social media, the internet, all kinds of gossip and nonsense that we don't need to be worrying about. And in this video, I'm going to provide some strategies to help you get back on track and get focused and enjoy whatever it is that you do that little bit more. So with that said, let's crack into it. All right, so let's first think a little bit about why it is important to be able to manage your focus effectively. The first reason is that focusing improves the quality of your output. When you are constantly distracted and your mind's elsewhere and you can't really think about and engage with what you're doing, then the work that you produce is actually going to be of a significantly lower quality. And this applies in all sorts of areas. If I'm distracted while I'm making this video, then it's not likely to be as good. If someone's distracted while they're trying to write an essay, the same could apply there. And really it applies across the board. The second reason why it's important to learn to be able to focus is that it helps you to enjoy a task more. And this kind of relates back to the first point, because when you are producing something of a higher quality, it's more enjoyable. You're more likely to get into the flow state. I've made other videos about this before. I'll link down to those in the description. And the basic gist is that the flow state is when your skill level is high, but the challenge of what you're doing is high. You can't really develop good skills without focusing, and you can't really therefore get into flow as easily without focusing either. Finally, it's great to be able to focus because focusing can help you become more naturally present. And I've talked again a bit about this in other videos. Presence is where you are not too preoccupied with the past and not overly obsessed with the future, but your focus and your attention is right in the center with what you're actually engaged with in the now. And if you're very engaged and focused with a task, then this helps to make you more present naturally. So this can also help lift your mood up. So let's talk a bit about multitasking. Can multitasking be good or bad? And my personal opinion is that it actually depends on the situation in question. So when you are reading or writing or doing something that engages the left side of your brain, which deals with language, I personally have found it very difficult to do these kind of activities while I'm listening to music which has lyrics in, because my brain will want to attend to the lyrics which I'm listening to, meaning that if I'm trying to read an essay or something, it's just not going to happen. So for this reason, if you're going to try and read or write, then some kind of very backgroundy ambient noise would be a better bet. However, if you're doing something more physical, such as going for a walk or going for a run, or even just doing the dishes, then here you have an opportunity to consume some information if you want. So this could be like an audiobook. And I think here it can be fine because you're doing something physically while your mind is engaged with something more language-based. So they're not necessarily competing for your attention as much. And in these situations, multitasking can be fine. In some situations, people can find listening to music actually helps them to focus. But as I said, the general point is that you want to just be aware of whether you are actually becoming more engaged with the task because of the music, or whether it is just a distraction which is not actually helping you. Furthermore, on the topic of music, and this is just an aside for anyone who has exams coming up, one thing I found very helpful while I was doing my exams at school especially was to actually not listen to music in like the 2 or 3 weeks leading up to my exams. And the reason for this is because I didn't actually want any songs to be stuck in my head in the examination hall. I think now I'm perhaps a little bit better at just concentrating and not having music stuck in my head, but that could be something to consider if you often find yourself with a catchy tune playing in your mind. So let's talk a bit more about distractions. I think that single tasking is in general a lot better than multitasking, especially if you want to really dive deep into an activity and just be really engrossed in it and give it your best shot. And one of the ways in which you can help facilitate this kind of engagement is with awareness. So let's say you're sitting down to study or to perform a task in the office. As you sit down to do the task, just start to become aware of the types of distractions that you may fall into. So these could be things like hearing notifications on your phone from Facebook or Instagram. And you may start to find that every few minutes, perhaps even, you're constantly checking your phone. Once you start to become aware of these types of patterns, you can begin to make changes. So these could be things like turning off the notifications on your phone, or just having more discipline to stay focused on the task itself. One thing to note about social media platforms such as Facebook is that the sites are actually designed to keep your attention on there as long as possible. And this is so you are more likely to see adverts and generate revenue for the company. So you've got to be aware of just how, become aware of the cycles, right? The patterns that you might fall into, and only go and visit those websites in breaks that you kind of are planning for yourself, rather than maybe things that are happening to you. One thing you can get for Facebook and YouTube as well are apps which help to kind of clean up the interface. And so what this means is that, for example, it can block the news feed, so instead you get a motivational quote. And this can help prevent you getting lost in endless scrolling, and instead you just check whatever notification you need to check on Facebook, and then you get back to whatever else you want to do. And I will link down to these extensions which I use in the description below. Finally, it is important to note that you can't always eliminate all distractions. For example, if you work in an open plan office, you may have people talking in the background or other things going on. And so to some degree, you just have to learn to focus on what you're doing and not turn your attention away from it. So one way to train your focus is through the attention training exercises. These were originally developed to help people with ADHD, but they've also been found to help relieve symptoms of anxiety and depression. So that's a really positive thing, in my opinion. I'll link down to some more detailed explanations of these techniques in the description of this video, but they basically involve things like hearing the different types of sounds in your environment and then trying to selectively switch between the different types of sounds you might hear. So for example, say you're outside and you can hear birdsong, you can hear cars going by, and maybe you can hear some music played from somewhere. What the attention training exercises will involve will be things like isolating one specific sound and then switching to the next one. So you first hear the bird song, then you kind of switch and you focus on the music, and then you focus and you switch to the cars, and then you can kind of switch between the three. I've personally, it sounds very simple, but it can actually really help. I haven't tried doing it sort of really consistently for like months and months, but it can be really cool little exercise to try. So I'll link down to a proper description of them in the description of this video, and you can read that if you want to learn more about it. So in the final part of this video, I'm going to be talking about recharging. And that's because it is important to recharge your attention. You can't just focus indefinitely, right? There's techniques like the Pomodoro technique, I think I'm pronouncing that right, where say for 25 minutes you engage with a task, then you take a 5-minute break, and then 25 minutes on, 5-minute break, and so on. But more generally, you will also need things obviously like lines, like times where you're just kind of chilling out, maybe walking in nature, maybe seeing some friends, and that's fine too. You can build your capacity to concentrate over a longer period of time. Once those habits are ingrained, you might not even need to recharge as much. You might actually get better and better at concentration. So pace yourself. Don't necessarily expect it to happen without you doing anything, but realize that it is okay to recharge. In fact, it is necessary to do so. Anyway, that is it for today. I think this has been quite a thorough video, but I hope you found it useful. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'm going to have more content on the way for you soon. I've really enjoyed making this video, and I hope you enjoyed watching it. So thank you for your attention, and I will see you next time. Peace.